Hey there, this is Ben from NYTOP. Today we're going to be installing our rock sliders on this very stock Toyota Land Cruiser. Yeah, let's get to it. So we believe that modern vehicles require modern design, which is why we designed our sliders to look this way, as opposed to just your traditional tube style sliders. Toyota and Lexus vehicles over the past few years have gotten much sharper and sleeker, and we want our parts to kind of reflect that same design language to ensure that the whole vehicle has a cohesive look to it. Although we are installing these sliders on this Land Cruiser today, they are also designed to fit both the current GX550 and 4Runner platforms. Before installing, check your vehicle's frame. If you do not have threaded holes in these locations, you will need 12 1/4-inch box bolts, which are sold on our website. Our primary tool today will be a ratchet paired with a 16mm socket. You'll use these to install all 16 of the M10 bolts and washers. There are a few mounting points towards the rear of the vehicle that can be tricky to access with a socket, and so we also suggest using a 16mm open wrench to make tightening those much easier. Lastly, of course, we'll need a torque wrench to get everything tightened down to spec. However, if your frame does not come with pre-threaded holes and you need a set of box bolts, you'll need a 10mm socket and an 18mm open wrench. If your vehicle is equipped with the OEM side steps, you'll also need a 12mm socket to remove and reinstall the factory mounting hardware. And if you also have the rocker lights on your vehicle, you'll need a 10mm socket as well. We highly recommend having some thread locker on hand for that reinstallation. If your vehicle is equipped with those OEM tube style sliders, you'll instead need a 14mm socket to get those out. In addition to these required tools, we also recommend eye protection, since dirt, mud, and debris often fall from the underside of the frame, especially when removing the OEM steps. As always, a mat or a blanket can make the installation process much more comfortable, or at least cleaner. And finally, these sliders weigh in at about 75 pounds each. We'd recommend having a friend give you a hand at least while you get a few bolts in the frame. If you're working alone, a floor jack can also be used to support one end of the slider while you start mounting that hardware. Before we install our NYTOP rock sliders, I'll walk you through how to remove the rocker lights and the OEM steps as well as the OEM sliders. Locate the rocker light panel towards the front end of either side of the vehicle. Using our 10mm socket, we're going to unbolt both the two bolts holding up that panel onto the side steps. Let's also unclip that wiring harness up top. Now for the side steps. Since the steps are quite light, they bolt directly onto the body of the vehicle. Anywhere that you see a black bracket, you can use that 12mm socket to get a pair of bolts out. You're going to want to remove all of the bolts except for this one, which you're only going to loosen. By keeping this bolt in there, you'll be able to hang the steps off of it, and then once it's loose, you can just slide it over so that it goes through the slot, and then you can remove it really easily. And then we're just going to reinstall all of those side step bolts back onto the body to prevent any rust from getting in. Set that rocker light panel and its screws off to the side for now. Repeat on the other side, and then you should be good to now skip to our NYTOP sliders installation. So if you have them, you'll need to remove the OEM sliders before we get the NYTOP sliders on. We're going to go at this thing with our 14mm socket and get all those bolts out. So you'll see that there's two bolts up front that go vertically into that bracket, and we're just going to go remove those. The OEM sliders are much heavier than the OEM steps, and they actually bolt into the frame right where our sliders are going to go. As for the bolts you just pulled out, you can toss those into your bolt bucket and you won't need them anymore. We do recommend having a second pair of hands just to help guide that slider off the frame as you unbolt them. Once you switch sides and pull the other slider off, you're ready for the NYTOP rock slider installation. Alright, we're gonna unbox our NYTOP rock sliders here. Here we go. For the installation portion of this video, we are going to open our sliders carefully and just lay them out on these large foam pieces that come packed into the box. The hardware only comes in one of the boxes, so if you don't see this wrapped package of bolts and washers, it'll be in the other box. We're going to set up our bolts with their washers before we get under the frame. There's going to be 16 bolts and washers to sort out together, and each side requires 8 of these. Yeah, this is really DIY friendly. You can just do it on the ground with a friend. Let's get to it. As you can see, we're starting over here on the driver's side of this Land Cruiser. We're pushing the slider up into position and lining up the vertical bolt holes first. John is going to get the front 2 bolts hand threaded on while I'm holding up the back in position. It doesn't really have to be in there 100%, but you need to hand thread them at least halfway in just to make sure they can support some weight of the slider. And once he has those in, we're going to switch and he's going to hold up the front part of the slider and I'm going to get 2 of the bolts hand threaded into 2 of the back brackets. From there, we're just getting the rest of the bolts on the frame by hand. You don't have to support the slider now, so it should be a lot easier. Now we're going to use our 16mm socket to hit all of these bolts. You can see that we leave the bolts sticking out just a little bit. You just want to thread them in about 80–90% of the way because that'll allow us to adjust how level the sliders are. On the driver's side, there's not a lot of clearance on the topmost rear bolt on the slider, so we recommend using a 16mm open wrench to torque that one down. So when you're installing these, you want to leave all the bolts loose so that you can adjust it up, down, left, right to get it into the exact position that you want to be. Once we have the slider positioned the way we want it, we're going to go ahead and tighten the rest of the bolts all the way down. Then we're going to hit it with our torque wrench. For those M10s, you're going to torque each one down to 48 foot-pounds. All right, we've got a 6th Gen 4Runner in today. I'm going to be showing you how to install our rock sliders with these box bolts. Each slider will require 2 of the included M10 bolts along with 6 separately purchased 1/4" box bolts. You'll also use all of the included washers with the box bolts and the M10 bolts. The M10 bolts are installed into 2 threaded mounting points located towards the front of the vehicle. The 6 box bolts are installed through the horizontal mounting holes in the frame to secure the remainder of the slider. So box bolts are made up of 3 parts. You have this inner bolt here, you have this outer sleeve with a hex head on it, and you have this little ribbed circular nut back here. So as you push this into the frame and in through the slot on our sliders, you're going to hold the outer hex steady with an open wrench and then tighten down the smaller head on top. And then what that does is it's going to pinch back here, and as you tighten that, it's going to force the nut up and it's going to spread these little flanges open and create sort of a super strong rivet that's basically as strong as an M10 bolt. Use the 18mm open wrench and the 10mm socket to tighten the box bolt until it is fully expanded and secure. The front M10s are going to be torqued down to 48 foot-pounds, and you're going to want to use the 16mm socket for that. However, you're going to torque all of the box bolts down to just 14 foot-pounds, and those will require the 10mm socket. So to relocate the rocker light, you're going to want to remove this bolt here, And then we're going to install the rocker light with that same bolt and plug it back in. If you notice, we are back to using our 12mm socket to get that bolt out. So for this bolt, when you reinstall it, you're going to want to add some thread locker to the threads just to prevent it from backing out. You can't torque down the bolt too much without cracking the plastic on the rocker light. So it's just a good way to keep it from falling out while you're driving. You'll also notice that while I'm doing this, we're actually installing the rocker panel upside down so that it doesn't hang below the rock slider. It tucks in quite nicely up top. And then there's a few holes in the frame and in the rocker that you can use to reclip these guys back into. Just find a few that work for you. And then you'll want to take this apart pretty slow. You don't want to crack that plastic panel. Just bolt it in enough to get snugly back into the body of the car and use some thread locker as well. All right, that's all for the installation. We also have an installation guide that's included with your sliders, and there's one available on the website in a PDF form as well. Thanks for watching, and keep an eye out for more videos in the future.